So let's get going. I'd like to welcome everybody to the class this evening. And let me begin by saying or reminding you that, although I guess I should be doing most of the talking for the first most of the class, I'd be absolutely delighted to have a discussion and all the rest of it at the end. And if during the next hour or so you've got any burning questions and you feel so inclined, do send them through in chat. I've got the sort of chat box up on the right hand side of my screen so I can see anything you send through to me. That would be really great. And the other thing that would be very good is if you find that I'm talking too quietly, for example, I wouldn't be at all offended to hear. I wouldn't be at all offended if you let me know. So maybe I could do something about that. This is about my normal volume for speech, but I should be meditating too, or at least having a go at it. And everything sort of quietens down when I meditate, including me. I'll try not to do that. But if I am getting a little bit too quiet, do please send a little message through it by chat. And then at the end, I'll ask Lavinia, who is pulling the IT strings behind the screen tonight. I'll ask her to unmute everybody, and then we can sort of talk normally. I don't know whether there's anybody here who's completely new to the class or to meditation, but it does no harm to assume there might be. In fact, a very, very, very celebrated book way back when I first sort of started getting into Buddhism myself. Gosh, when was that? Early 70s, maybe before that even. It was a book by there you go, memories going, called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. And sort of a beginner's mind is a perfect attitude to have approaching a period of meditation. What's going to happen? I'm a beginner. Tonight, we're all beginning a meditation class. There you go. We're all beginners. So what's a beginner's mind like? It's ideally, it's open. It's not knowing. That's the interesting thing. You begin by not knowing. You're not sure. You're not knowing. You don't quite know what's going to happen. You've got a vague idea, perhaps, what meditation is all about, but for sure, we don't know what's going to happen. So it's an open-minded, a very open-minded, generous, open-minded attitude to this practice. A great attitude is, let's just see, let's have a look, let's see. You know, that analogy I often use, it's like going to the cinema. I was away on holiday and I looked at a few just recently and actually spent a couple of evenings watching movies I hadn't seen before. And because I hadn't seen them before, I'm not a great movie buff or anything like that. So people I was with said, well, you might enjoy, for example, The Two Popes. I don't know whether you've seen it or not. I didn't know about it. And so it's, I don't know, let's put it on and have a look. It's that sort of attitude. Let's sit here and have a look. And have a look at what? Have a look at what's going through the mind. That's the essence of the thing. This is I'd like to emphasize the simplicity of this practice of mindfulness because everybody's doing it. Every teacher's got their own angle on it. People talk about the correct posture and what the right meditation object should be and how long should I do it. How do I know I'm getting anywhere with this? And it's like, and it's very, and the desire is often to figure it all out, actually. And my attitude to this is keep it simple, because the root of this mindfulness practice is very, very simple. It's just knowing what's going on in the mind, not in the first instance cultivating any particular, mental attitude. We can, at some other time, we can cultivate the Brahma Viharas, loving kindness and sympathetic joy and all the rest of it. Well, let's start off with just like, how's the mind? What's going on in the mind, our experience in the mind? It's a noticing practice. That's all. I mean, that's it. And then all the issue about, posture and meditation objects and all the rest of it is like, that supports it because it's a simple practice. What's going on in the mind? Knowing what's going on in the mind. Nothing could be simpler than that, really. But no, I'm not saying it's easy. All right? Just noticing what's going on in the mind, what's coming through consciousness. Because, I'm sitting here and you're sitting there. If you've got your eyes open, you're going to see a Buddha Rupa, a few other folks there, and you're probably seeing me. And it's like, but we're processing. Each individual here is processing those sights, that visual information in their own way. And then we're adding things to it, like, I like this, I don't like that. When are we actually going to start meditating? And on and on and on. So that's what's going on in the mind. And we're very honest about that. And it's quite interesting to, when people get into meditation for the first time, and they at the end of it, they say, oh, it's just, my head's all over the place. It's just non-stop thinking. And my reaction to that, because it's sort of a cry from the heart, I can't stop thinking. One thought after another. And my reply is, wow, you're making good progress. You actually notice that. You notice that. You're really getting on with this noticing, this mindfulness practice very well indeed, by just noticing that the mind is up to its own monkey tricks. Great. So the practice at heart, at essence, is extremely simple. Just notice what's going on in the mind. And then perhaps more difficult is the other side of this mindfulness practice, which is learning to let go of it, to disengage from it. That is trickier. That is. The practice, the essence of this practice is notice, let go. Notice, let go. That's it. That's all. If you can do that, that's it. And then everything else is supporting ideas, like posture. I'm just wriggling around a bit here, making sure I'm sitting reasonably upright, fairly alert. I don't know if it's been a busy sort of day, probably feeling a bit torpid. Alert posture, but a relaxed posture. Alert posture, relaxed posture. That's really nice. And then, there's nothing, the relaxed posture means the physical conditions aren't impinging on consciousness too much. And if I wasn't sitting comfortably, what would be going through my mind was fidgeting and wanting to adjust my posture. Oh, no. I'm going to let go of that by just adopting a sort of a helpful, supportive posture, an alert posture as well. But these are not difficult, things to do. I don't think they're difficult to do. Alert, relaxed posture. We don't have to sit. We don't have to sit, on the floor, cross-legged. We don't have to. That might help. That might help. Alert, relaxed posture to enable us to do a bit of nature study. And it's the simplest sort of nature study. Noticing what's going on in the mind. That's where it all happens. I was going to say in Mahayana traditions, but maybe in neuroscientific research as well. It all happens in the mind. It all happens in the mind. So what's going on in the mind? We experience the body in the mind. Most obviously in terms of opinions about the way it should be. Right? A sort of narrative about the body. We identify with the body. But that's all stuff that's going on in the mind. And you say, what about the physicality of the body? Well, if we're sitting with the eyes closed, we don't really see anything in the body at all. But we experience the body through sensations. And so just bring the attention, I suggest, to sensations in the body. Just things like the feeling of sitting, the weight of the body sitting on something, the pressure of the feet on the floor, the hands touching something, maybe each other, We're breathing the breath in the body. Notice that. The shoulders. Any tension there? Or not? If you're sitting in a chair, you probably notice the back of the chair. Sensations in the face. And you notice how these sensations just come and go. Experiencing the body in this way, just one sensation after another. You know, it's like hands touching, warmth in the hands, feet on the floor, breathing, shoulders. Everything's changing, isn't it? In the world of physical sensations, you know, when we sort of slow down a bit, we see that everything else is moving. We're here. We're sitting in our little hide, watching nature. And nature, in the sense of our body, is just one sensation after another. Oh. And then we can refine our practice and very deliberately scan the body from top to toe. And some sensations are more pronounced than others. I say, feelings in the hands, or the feeling of sitting, or feet, legs if we're sitting on the floor. We're always breathing. Where do we notice the breath? In the belly, the movement of the rib cage, the nostrils. And a great thing to do is to put our attention where there probably isn't anything to notice at all, like on the top of the head. Maybe we notice something on the top of the head, the crown of the head, but compared with the weight of the body sitting here or the warmth of the room and my skin, not a lot going on. So being aware of no sensation, that's an interesting practice. You know, sure, if you've got a stomach ache, you've got a splinter or stubbed our toe on something, you notice that. But what we don't notice is when there's no sensation. Nothing much going on the top of the head and the scalp. I like sitting with the eyes closed because there's less visual distraction. It's as simple as that. But then you notice sensations around the eyes, like the eyelids touching. And you can see if we're trying too hard, because if I'm trying too hard, I'm going to screw my forehead up. I'm really studying this meditation because I've got an exam on it tomorrow, you know, and that's a recipe for getting a headache if we practice like that. But, you know, we can use the body to tell us what we're up to, actually. Tense head, back off a bit. The lips are touching, the saliva in the mouth. Don't forget the breath on the nostrils. We might come back and use that as a meditation object in a bit. And the neck, the shoulders, the arms, armpits, elbows, clothing on the arms, shirt, sweater, hands parked somewhere out of the way, touching, clammy on the fingers. I find a great practice is to put the attention in the palm of the hands. The hands are so sensitive, actually. And back up the arms. And just be aware of the shoulders at the back. Run the attention down the spine, down the sides of the body. So again, if we were doing this over a period of time, almost vertebra by vertebra, down to the tailbone, the feeling of sitting. Let's go up and the front of the body, the front of the trunk, across the shoulders at the front, the collarbone. I find that very useful because a lot of my life spent slumped over a desk or a laptop or something, and you kind of get constricted across the top of the chest. Just be aware of that spaciousness. The front of the body, upper chest, between the shoulders. And then feel the rib cage moving as we breathe in and out. And that's the touch of the clothing on the chest, isn't it, really? We're very attentive. We can pick up the heartbeat, pulse, down into the abdomen, the belly, pressure of the waistband, all the plumbing going on there. We've just had a meal, or if we anticipate a meal. And the pelvis, groin area, the hips, and then down the left leg, say, upper left leg. Just notice the touch of the clothing. Now, if we're sitting on the floor, lots and lots of things to notice there. Around the knee, the shin, left foot, the back of the foot, the sole of the foot, toes, right leg, right hip. Any sensation? Upper right leg, calf. Oh, I've gone down a bit. Thigh, knee, kneecap, back of the knee. Now, the calf, the shin, ankle, foot, the entire body. A mass of sensations coming into consciousness. And that's interesting. So where's all the other stuff gone? I am this age. I am a man of this age. I look like this. I've got an opinion about how I look. A bit concerned about hair loss. It's all opinion, isn't it? It's all opinions. I couldn't even, honestly, from my direct experience right now, I couldn't tell you anything about my gender or my skin color or my age. I'd have to dive into the memory bank to retrieve all that information. And it's not like I shouldn't know these things. It's just that, right now I don't have to. The body feels like this. How's the mood? How's the mood? Be honest about that. And there again, it's not like the mood's got to be peaceful and calm and all the rest of it. It may be quite agitated, actually. Quite agitated. Quite a lot to be agitated about, isn't it? We're feeling agitated, we just know that. Agitation, or feeling down, or feeling happy, is as natural as physical sensations in the body. We're aware of that. Oh, okay. Not feeling too bad, quite light. No. Or not, feeling a bit down, a bit depressed. It's acknowledging, without any sort of judgment, really. I mean, some moods are more pleasant than other moods. Some physical sensations are more pleasant than other physical sensations. Of course. But we notice that, just as they are. And we notice our reaction to physical sensations, are reactions to moods. And then there's all the thinking as well. The mind, the monkey mind, is often all over the place. That's nature. This is nature study. And the simplicity of this practice is just witnessing that. Without, turning it into a drama, just noticing it. That's the way it is. The sort of the strapline I like to use for this class, mindfulness, It's like this. I didn't invent that. That's Ajahn Subhaddo, actually. It's like this. What's it like? What's mindfulness like? It's like this. What's going on in the mind right now? It's like this. Just like this. And our job is to bear witness to it being just like it is. And that doesn't mean, it's pleasant or unpleasant. That doesn't mean we can't at some later date do something about it. Heavens no. But right now, it's like this. This is nature study. Simple, very simple, but quite difficult. That's why some of us use a meditation object to anchor things down a little bit, to calm things down a little bit. And there are many, many different meditation objects, like a mantra. That's very helpful. In other words, deliberately kind of thinking, may I be well. Peace, peace. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Om Mani Padme Hum. Mantras. And that's great. That's a little stabilizer. The mind desperately wants to think, so we give it some words to think, not other words. Just let the mind rest on the mantra, or the feeling of the breath. I like to use the feeling of the breath, the rhythm of the breath. Where, don't fuss about it. Wherever we notice it, belly, nostrils. That tends to be me. Nostrils. Breathing in, breathing out. And that's just, it's not like I should. It's not I'm saying I should concentrate on the breath. What a heavy statement that is. It's like, relax, let go, let the attention rest on the breath. I'm not clinging to the breath. It's kind of a refuge. Great, peaceful. Breathing in, breathing out. Peaceful and difficult because it's not stimulating. So the monkey mind wants to take off places, go places, anywhere, even unpleasant places. In other words, it wants to think, it wants to think about thinking, it wants to emote about thinking, and that's not peaceful. That's not peaceful. It might be temporarily pleasant. You can get quite a buzz out of being angry, self-righteous anger. But against that, there's always the peacefulness of the empty mind, consciousness itself. So when the mind wanders, we notice that. That's part of our nature too. This is not a stop thinking practice. Maybe the conditions will be such that thinking will slow down. It's very different from saying, stop thinking. I'm not saying that. Let the attention settle on the breath. When the mind wanders, you notice that. And then very deliberately point the attention back to your meditation object, the breath, the mantra, or this thing called the sound of silence, which a lot of us use as well. Following the breath, breathing in, breathing out. Mind wanders. There we go again. Let go. In breath. Out breath. And just notice the rhythm of the breath. Long breath, short breath, deep breath, shallow breath. But we're not trying to control it in any way, we're just observing it. It's like in the old days, you used to tune a radio, and you twiddle the knob, signal to begin with is pretty crackly. And then you kind of refine it a little bit and a little bit more, and you get a nice clear signal. And it's sort of like that with the breath. Until it's quite enjoyable just noticing the beginning of an in-breath. Its duration, breath ends, breath changes direction. We don't have to do anything about it. We're not controlling the breath. An out-breath begins. There we go. Out-breath ends. Another out-breath. That's quite difficult because it's not stimulating. It's tranquilizing. It's maybe a way to getting a bit of peace of mind, perhaps. Just imagine if we could let go of troublesome thoughts, just relax into enjoying the rhythm of the breath, the next breath, the next in-breath, the next out-breath. I guess that, for me, is the main therapeutic benefit, perhaps, of this practice. The ability to, on a good day or on a good night, just to let go, not to suppress the thoughts or anything like that, to redirect the attention to the peaceful in-breath and out-breath. So do take this opportunity to stretch if you need to, get up. If you want to send through the chat, don't forget that's always a possibility. Oh dear, seem to have got me here. Lavinia, save us all by putting up the Buddha image, please. Thank you. Phew, that's a relief. This is a very simple practice. It really is. Just sit there and see what happens. And that's it. Just sit down and see what happens. And it's so different from sitting down and getting on with some work, or sitting down and, having a meal. Nothing wrong with sitting down and reading a book or getting on, with the work or having a meal or watching a movie. Nothing wrong with that at all. But this is just sit down and see what happens. That's all. And just seeing the impetus to a very common thing. I just said, well, please just sit down, see what happens. The mind goes into, and then what do I do? I remember very clearly, quite a few years ago, I invited a Soto, a Zen monk, who I knew, to come in just and do a one night stand at the meditation class. This was in 58 Eccleston Square. And I said, please set it all up exactly as you would do it, as if it was a regular Soto Zen session. So he did it was very interesting. He had everybody facing the wall. So you have to two rows of us students there. And normally we might be facing the front towards the teacher. But he said, no, turn your backs on each other and sit facing the wall. So that was quite interesting, just seeing one's reaction to that. They're all sitting on the floor, on chairs, facing the wall. And then he said, just sit. And it's like, and then what? And then what? Just sit. That's not interesting. Just sit there and see what happens. And what might be happening is the mind suddenly, what are we supposed to be doing? This is what meditation is all about. The uncertain mind, or the restless mind, or the mind that wants to get a handle on this meditation. Sit there and see what happens. So that's the essence of this practice. And things like a meditation object are helpers. He didn't say follow the breath. He didn't say use a mantra. He just said sit there. And that's, it's a bit challenging. So things like rhythm of the breath, or attending to sensations in the body, or a mantra, these are all little helpers. There's something to do. There's something to do to bring the attention to the breath. It's quite a helpful practice. Just sit there and see what happens. Watch the mind wander. No judgment involved. Just watch the mind wander. Then bring the attention back to the breath. We pay attention to the attention. This is a practice of paying attention, but not heavy duty stress. It's not stand to attention, pay attention sort of thing. It's like, just see what happens. And so we see the mind wandering. We notice that. No judgment involved. It's what minds do. We let go. We point the attention back to the breath. People say, how do you let go? I just said it. We point the attention back to another object, the breath. And then in that moment, we've let go. Now, habits die very hard indeed. So the mind may well wander to exactly the same place again. And then we do the same thing again. We deliberately redirect the attention. It's the peaceful, calming breath. So, one benefit of this very, very simple practice, just sit there and see what happens, is we get a bit of peace of mind because we learn how to let go of thoughts. And we also learn how attractive thoughts are, actually. how attached we are to thinking. Is that peaceful or not? And so we learn how to let go of thinking. And I think that has a therapeutic benefit. And that's something else we notice as well as we gradually do this. So what we're doing is we're sitting here, we're noticing, you know, we're just sitting here and seeing what happens. And what happens are sights and sounds, and smells and tastes, and physical sensations, and thoughts and emotions coming into the mind. That's what happens. That's the world of our experience, isn't it? That's how we experience the world. I see you as images on the screen. You see me the same way. I see a Buddha image. There are sights and there are sounds as well. Right? There are sights and sounds. And I had incense going, you smell the incense, or dinner cooking, you smell the dinner. Tastes and physical sensations, of course, from the body and thinking. And these all manifest in consciousness. We notice that and we let go. So the world of what's coming into consciousness, and then wow, there's consciousness itself. Isn't that interesting? So what have we seen? We've learned how to get a bit of, quote, peace of mind. And then we've also noticed this mind is an incredible thing. Quite incredible, but it's simple practice. We've noticed as the contents of the mind, sight, sound, smells, tastes, physical sensation, thinking, blah, 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 all that coming in. And then there's the ability to be aware of that. There's awareness itself. Awareness itself. That's very interesting, isn't it? It's very interesting. So let's resume doing a bit of sitting there and seeing what happens. So resume your posture. Resume your posture. Alert, relaxed. That's the idea. Check out the body. Absolutely non-judgmentally. We've all brought perfect bodies to the Buddhist Society's meditation class this evening. Perfect bodies from the point of view of nature study. And check out the mood again, the mind, happy mind, depressed mind, perfect mind from mindfulness practice. You see things like depression, happiness, these are all objects of the mind. They all come into the mind, they have their life, they toddle off. We have distinct preferences about I'd rather be happy, I'd rather be depressed. This is all identification, hanging on to all this mental stuff that comes and goes. And we form judgments about it as well. But that's all mental stuff. And we're aware of that. We're aware of what the mind is up to. What's aware of what the mind is up to? And the answer is awareness. Right? There's awareness there. And that's there all the time, isn't it? Really? There's awareness. Anyway, set the body up. Alert, relaxed posture. The head is spinning or as tranquil as it wants to be. We notice that. We sit there and notice. And if it helps, we've got a little anchor, the feeling of the breath, the words of the mantra. May I be well, may others be well. Breathing in, breathing out. A very simple practice. And when the mind wanders, which is what monkey minds do, we don't beat ourselves up. There we go again. That's what I say to the monkey mind, or to me. There we go again. Let go. Breathing in. Breathing out. like to recommend a charity. I think it's a charity called Action for Happiness. Pretty obvious from the title what it does. It's all about encouraging people to be happy. And it's not in any way overtly a Buddhist organization, but lo and behold, they're very keen on mindfulness. And they, Action for Happiness strongly recommends it. And some of the people behind it are lay mindfulness teachers. And I mention that because yesterday, I think, I got their regular kind of newsletter, and they're encouraging a mindful march. I think they're calling it a mindful march, with all sorts of tips. That's quite interesting to sort of see the kind of things they're encouraging, which is extending this ability to be mindful, to notice what's going on in the mind, really, into everything we do. So it's like sort of we talk about moments of mindfulness in all our daily activities, which is quite interesting. So you take something like doing the washing up. That can be getting your hands in the soapy water or putting the stuff in the dishwasher. And it's not like you doggedly do it, but you do it. But then you're aware of maybe the resistance to doing it. You just notice what's going on as well. You notice that you're going to be standing at the sink, the feeling of standing. You're breathing, and of course all the thinking. Thinking including, I don't want to do it. There's this sort of total mindfulness going on around about a particular task. It's really quite interesting to sort of turn a daily activity into an opportunity just to reflect on how one is experiencing this, and still do it. Or they talk, another very good one is kind of sort of spring is sprung, isn't it? So noticing nature. We're all, even if we live in central London, window boxes, and there's plenty of little green spaces in London. And just notice what's going on there, and notice the way nature, in this sense, or the seasons, impact upon the mood, on the mind. It's like blue sky, bright blue sky. What's that like? Well, I could tell you, but you can imagine. And then you look out of the window today, where I've been, pretty grey. How does that affect the mind? Bright or dull? But then today, you notice the fact that a lot of the spring bulbs are coming out and looks pretty good. And you just notice how nature, in that sense, affects the mind. Interesting. We're conditioned. What we experience in the mind is conditioned by all sorts of things, including external things like hands in soapy water, or crocuses in bloom, or whatever. Interesting to do that. And they were also encouraging the practice of metta during March. And that brings me on to something else, actually, which is we live in extremely disturbing times at the moment. There seems to be one, disturbance after another. It was COVID, and now it's the horrible things in Ukraine. And all of that has an effect on the mind, doesn't it? It really does. And one can get very down and worried about it, as well as wanting to do something to help about it. And that's very interesting to see how the mind reacts, and what's a helpful mind state, and all of that in these quite difficult circumstances. So, for example, some of you know I go into prison and try and do Buddhist-y things in prison, whatever that means, which hasn't meant a lot over the last couple of years because of COVID. But today I went in for various reasons, and it's like I'm instinctively, I guess because I'm old, but I'm quite cautious actually about all of this COVID business. So I went in feeling quite cautious. And one of the reasons I went in was because somebody in the chaplaincy uh, was leaving, the Roman Catholic. Well, I don't know what is she a priest or what? I don't think she is, but anyway, she was the Roman Catholic chaplain, and she was leaving after many years, and a very good person. I mean, not just a lovely person, but also a very competent person as well. Those qualities don't often go together. And so I go in, I'm a bit, I can sort of feel myself putting a distance. And then I go in, and there she is. And the first thing she does, come over me and give me a huge, huge hug. That was wonderful. A transformative hug. And you can just see how, to some extent, the backing away dissolves in that sort of situation. And then there's all this horrible business about, Ukraine. And it is really horrible, and it can be quite worrying. And one can want to, and one doesn't know what to do. That's another thing. One notices, it's like, what on earth does one do in a situation like that? In our situation, never mind if you're, a victim there. What on earth does one do here and now? And one wants to help. And a certain amount of clarity, first of all, of noticing one doesn't know what to do, and then there's the compassion thing, but one wants to do something. It's like sort of coming together. There's a wisdom and compassion. And I was just talking here at home about this. I mean, we were actually engaged in a discussion about it. It's like what to do. Well, actually, we have some friends in Poland, so if we sent them some money, maybe they could do something, to help with the refugees. They want immediate help, and then you sort of, that's a very good motive. But on the other hand, just think about it. Our friends live in Western Poland, and all the refugees are coming across from the east. So it's like maybe there's a better way of doing things. And yes, there is actually, because the disaster emergency outfit is coordinating a lot of help. So it's quite interesting to see the mind agitated, disturbed, wanting to help, and then because one can see what's going on in the mind, that ability to step back and ask the question, was this the best way of doing it? Is there a more skillful, more effective way of doing it? That's very interesting. And throughout all of this, I'd certainly, it's like we're sort of here in the middle of this maelstrom. I don't know what tomorrow's going to be like, here, let alone in Ukraine. I have no idea. So it's like I find the practice of cultivating goodwill, of metta, is very helpful. May I be well, may all others be well. And there's developing a sense of compassion, obviously, to people who are suffering, including oneself. I don't know what to do. Potential for anxiety here in my heart as well, right? Let alone the horrors of what's going on in Ukraine. May I be well, may suffering beings be well, may all beings be well. And that's the very least one can do. And that's helpful in itself. Wishing all those involved a compassionate thought towards them. And I'm reminded here of something a few weeks ago when Thich Nhat Hanh passed away, a very famous Vietnamese teacher. And I have, like lots of other people, really appreciate his teachings. And he, way back, he was involved with the Vietnamese boat people escaping from Vietnam when the Viet Cong took over. And that was a pretty horrible scene. So people were getting on boats and then being attacked on the boats and all this sort of stuff. It was unbelievably horrible. And he made a good point that everyone wants to obviously be compassionate towards the victims as well. But he then said something which was very radical, which was, we should really be compassionate towards the people who are inflicting this harm as well. And you sort of think, what is that? And it's like, well, if you're Buddhist, at the very least, you sort of probably have some feeling for a rebirth and all of that. If you go around doing some of these terrible things, for example, that are going on in Ukraine at the moment, and if you do buy the rebirth, story, they're in for a very bad time themselves. And more directly, in my experience here again, people, you know, right now who do quite terrible things are not at all happy themselves. They're not at all happy themselves. They shouldn't do it. I'm not for one moment condoning it. But I'm saying, just remember that they're often quite disturbed, quite unhappy people. Hey, look, I've said much too much. Please, Lavinia is very kindly helping us tonight. Please unmute everybody. And I'd encourage people to ask questions. You don't have to unmute, but you can unmute now. You can ask questions or send a message through by chat, either a question or something to discuss or whatever. Love to hear from you. Let me get a gallery view up. Ah, there we go. Now, don't forget that I don't even know how many people are here. Hang on. But I can't, well, of course, I can't see everybody, not least because some of us have not switched our cameras on. So please don't, you know, if you can be seen, wave your hand or something. Otherwise, just chat away. Oh, I've got a message from somebody saying, thanks for the class, I've got to go. Thanks for coming, is my reply. Any questions, any comments? I've got a question for everybody here. Any particular topics you'd like to, you know, explore in these classes? I don't think anything's been sent through in chat. Oh, it's one thing being sent through in chat. One chat. Ah, well, that's the person who said they've got to go. Well, if not, we can end and stay safe over the next week. Take care. And one of the things I thought was really quite interesting during the sort of, I'm talking in the past sense about COVID. Well, of course, it's still pretty rampant out our way, wherever that is. But it was like the way, you know, people were sort of addressing this question of keeping distance and wearing masks and all the rest of it. You know, some people were just sort of saying, well, what the heck, if I get it, I get it. But other people were sort of saying things like, I don't want to pass it on to anybody else. And I was really quite remarkable. I don't, you know, it's like, I really don't want to give it to anybody else. So I'll wear this stupid mask. It was that sort of attitude. Yeah, sure. That was very impressive. People were really kind of caring for each other in a very lovely way. Oh, somebody's just sent me a message. Can I talk about the heart mind? Well, yes. I mean, this is all the emotional part of our lives, isn't it? It's you know, sometimes we think about the mind as just in terms of, if you like, the intellectual side of it, the thinking in a simple sense. But when when people talk about the heart mind, I think we're sort of recognizing that, all the emotional stuff, joy, sadness, etc., etc., etc. Where does that manifest? That manifests in the mind as well. So from the point of view of practice, it's like there's the feeling of sadness. There's the feeling of anxiety, anxiety. Gosh, what's anxiety like? Well, we all know what anxiety is like. It's like this in the mind. It's like this. So it's like, to me, the heart mind, in that sense, in that if I think I'm right, if we're talking about our emotional lives, that takes place in the mind, just as the most profound, deliberate thinking occurs in the mind. And the practice is, oh, that's it. Just like that. It's like that. It's like this. That's what anxiety is like. And there again, this interaction between body and mind is very interesting. Like Ajahn Barry, I'm very keen on developing this practice of scanning the body, of using the body as a meditation object, because so much of our emotional stuff in the mind manifests in the body, doesn't it? If take anxiety. God, what does anxiety feel like? It feels to me like butterflies in the stomach. Okay. And so you can think, well, a better one is, from a point of view, what I'm about to say, a better one is something like anger. You take anger. So supposing we'd like to step back from being angry, and angry is all about, I did this, she did that, on and on and on. I'll sort it out. Our paths better not cross if they do. And all this stuff is built on memory and projections of the future as well. And it's quite difficult to stand back from something like that, because actually anger, in that sense, is quite sort of stimulating, isn't it? Righteous anger. But then when one notices what anger's like in the body, face getting flushed, getting tight, shoulders getting up, hands, clenching. You notice that, and one can relax a bit and let go of it. So anxiety, there's often a mental cause of anxiety. And I'm sure I've told you this story before, but some years ago, I was massively overcommitted. I said I'd do half a dozen things by yesterday. It was that kind of nonsense. And I'm very anxious. And there was no, and look, the point was, there was no obvious solution to that. And I couldn't do all these things by yesterday. But if you sit meditation, I was sort of sitting meditation, and I could sit meditation with that quite well, because it was just turbulence in the stomach. It was just butterflies, hundreds of butterflies churning around in my stomach. That's what this anxiety was, that's what it felt like. And then actually I can handle that. It's like, it feels like that. Okay, it feels like that. So it's, and that cuts through a lot of the mental stuff. Or here's another one, here's depression. Anybody who's suffered from depression knows that this sort of interplay, all the stuff that's going on in our heads, I'm no good, useless, everybody hates me, right? And then it does stuff in the body, doesn't it? You don't want to get out from under the duvet. You feel incredibly heavy and down. It's like the last thing I want to do is go out and socialize. They probably all hate me anyway. On the other hand, of course, logically, it's probably quite a good thing to go out and chat to your mates, you see. So, it's like, I'm all in favor, but this is purely me, and I'm not a psychiatrist or psychologist or therapist or anything. But I'm all for looking at anger, at depression, in terms of being a physical thing. Something is some chemical imbalance in the brain, which makes me feel extremely heavy and down and reclusive. And That's just a physical thing, isn't it? It's just another physical thing. But if I sort of take it, all that stuff personally, I'm no good, I'm no good, I'm no good. Notice all the I invested in that. It doesn't help at all. It's difficult to let go of all of that because I'm continually recreating, this very negative person. But on the other hand, if it's just, I know it's a chemical imbalance and the body is feeling incredibly heavy and lethargic, okay, can live with that. Not too bad, is it? Heart mind. Anything else we want to talk about the heart mind? I think it's very, as in terms of Buddhist practice and Buddhist meditation, I do actually think cultivating the sort of heart side of the practice is really quite important. Mindfulness practice can seem a bit dry, can't it? You're just looking at stuff, noticing it, letting go, noticing it, letting go. And it can seem a bit sort of cold, a bit kind of dry. I don't think it is, but it can certainly seem like that. And so it's really a very good thing. I have found it enormously helpful to develop a sort of heart practice, which is metta. Sending thoughts of goodwill to yours truly, and to people you like, people you care about, people you love, all that, and then people you just kind of bump into around the place. I find all that very helpful because it sort of turns the attention around from, what's wrong with people to their good point. I mean, absolutely everybody I know, if I think hard enough about it, there's bits of people I don't like. Other people, and they can be the same people I admire tremendously. Now, here's the question for me: what am I going to focus on? Right? If I focus on everything I don't like about somebody, I don't think that does me any good or them or any good at all. But on the other hand, if I think, well, actually, he's a very good Dharma teacher, or she's a really, she does a lot of good deeds, it's a really good person around the community. If I focus on that, it's a question of getting the balance right, isn't it? And the interesting thing about that is this connection between, say, metta and insight meditation, you see. Because a lot of what goes on in the mind is all about identification and what we think of ourselves and what we think of others. And doing metta practice kind of challenges that, actually. You begin to appreciate the good in ourselves and in other people. And one realizes how easy it is to construct a negative sense of self. You don't have to do that. No, I mean, admittedly, don't want to go the other way. It's like you don't want to. I don't think there's much chance of any of us doing that, but believing we're the greatest thing since the Buddha's time. It's like, or you can see a acute attack of that. Somebody in the news clearly thinks he's the embodiment of all that's great and good in Mother Russia. I mean, that's pretty crazy stuff. But on the other hand, if you go around thinking you're a scumbag, that's equally fallacious, isn't it? It really is. Hey, here's another one. Somebody else has sent me a nice message. Is there a practice that helps us to cultivate viewing our feelings with more clarity? I feel the stronger emotions, such as anger and anxiety, easy to sense, good point. But the subtler emotions give a more muddy picture of how I'm actually feeling. Yeah, exactly, yes. Well, yeah, good point. Good point. So interesting. So anger and anxiety easy to sense. That's true. That's true. But of course, because they are strong emotions, it's a bit more challenging, if you want to let go of them. On the other hand, subtler emotions, I don't know, are they a problem? I mean, the important thing one learns in this practice is how we're all conditioned. That's just, you and I, we're all conditioned the way we are as a result of past behavior, past actions, and past can be, yesterday or lifetimes ago if you're a Buddhist, right? So a lot of stuff is going on in there. And the question is, well, just knowing it. I mean, it's like, the question is, give me a muddy picture of how I'm feeling. Well, you feel the way you feel. I feel the way I feel. I know what you mean, but and it's very easy to notice a strong emotion, a strong feeling, but quite difficult to at least you've got a flag there. So, that's anger. Breathe out, relax, that's that sort of thing. But no, I mean, I agree there's a lot going on underneath. But my instinct is I've got enough stuff on the top to work with for quite a while, actually. The more underlying, emotions will sort of kind of crop up. Oh yeah, I really felt put down when I was a kid, and that's sort of coming up. That's interesting. So you could sort of send yourself thoughts of loving kindness and forgive that little boy, for not being terribly smart when he was a teenager. We're not, I don't think the practice is one of, going out and revealing all our emotions. I don't think it's like that. They crop up, they pop into the mind, and when they do, we notice that. And it's like that. This is joy, this is happiness, this is feeling of being appreciated or being put down. I'll notice that. And then there is obviously all the underlying conditioning as well, and which we can notice if they want to be noticed, Well, as I say, my instinctive reaction to that good point is I've got enough stuff coming to the surface, actually. I don't go looking for all the underlying subtler stuff. It'll crop up. I'll be there. It'll crop up. I'll deal with it when it happens, or at least try. Are there any more questions? The clock is ticking towards 8 o'clock. We don't turn into a pumpkin or anything like that at 8 o'clock, but I'm just aware of Lavinia, who's looking after us this evening. And I suspect she has another life besides being the guardian of the Buddhist Society. Any other? Oh, somebody else has sent something through. From Lisa. Lisa, you're there. Did you by any chance spend some time at Chithurst?
Yes, I did recently. Yes, I had a great opportunity to go there.
Great, and I'm good. I'm good to see you back. Did you enjoy Chithurst?
Very much. Yeah, it was a fantastic opportunity. I really enjoyed it and learned a lot from it.
That's very good. Oh, great! I'm glad you did that. What were you doing there? What were you working? You were obviously part of the crew, the team maintaining the show during the retreat.
So I was there as a long-term lay resident just before the retreat and for part of the winter retreat. There were really good opportunities to practice alongside the Sangha, as well as supporting the Sangha with, practical things like cooking in the kitchen, things like that. So, it was, really valuable opportunity.
Well, that's really good. No, I'm sure they appreciated you doing that. That's great.
I appreciated the opportunity of going there. It was really good.
Brilliant. Very good. Well, it's nice to see you back. It's nice to see other friends here. And hang on, somebody sent me some other message. I found vitamin B tablets. Oh, that's very good. I always like helpful advice. Jolly good. Somebody said vitamin B helps depression immensely. Just don't take more than the recommended dose. This is sort of practical help. That's really very good. Thank you so much for that advice. That's very good. And so I think 8 o'clock. I might go in search of a bit of vitamin D in a bowl of soup or something like that in a few minutes. So again, thank you very much for coming, everybody. Do take care. Thank you for Lavinia for looking after us, and see you next week, I hope. Okay, good night.